Thank you very much. It's really satisfying to see, one of your old students do so amazingly well. So it's really just nice to get to know Jing again and to be here with all of you. I want to thank you for allowing us to take a little pause in the great science we've been hearing, for those of us representing ASM leadership to share our passion about the society with you. I'm very interested in mentoring and education. I have been throughout my research career, and I want to share with you some thoughts on this, but mostly to highlight some really nice ASM programs and tools that I hope you will take advantage of as you progress in your career. My talk is mainly directed towards trainees and young scientists, but I think there also may be some interesting points here, I hope, for more established scientists. So let's go ahead and start. So this is a very nice picture, very calm picture of a straight pathway. And for many of us, there's a clear pathway from A to Z to how to progress to become an independent scientist. So you go to high school, college, graduate school, you do a postdoctoral fellowship most of the time, and then ultimately you get a real job, right? Whether it's in academia or industry or government or what have you, right? So this is really, I think this is a pretty slide. It's really nice and straightforward, but the reality is it's not always that way. Most of the time it's not that way, right? So we take turns, we have stops and goes, and life gets complicated along the way, not just until we ultimately get our first real job, but even after that point. So this is why we talk about career development. So as a microbiologist, I don't think about railroad tracks so much, but I do think that this run and tumble model that was first proposed for bacterial chemotaxis in E. coli 50 years ago now by Berg and Brown is kind of a nice illustration maybe of a pathway, right? So in this schematic here showing chemotaxis, you have the bacterium start, oops, let me go back. Starting at some point, doing a run, and then what we call a tumble, and we know this is 50 years ago, so we know at the molecular level how this works. We know that the change in direction of the flagella determine whether they are spinning counterclockwise or clockwise, facilitating swimming or tumbling. We know a whole lot about signaling and what causes a bacterium to swim from A to B, right, to swim towards an attractant or away from a repellent. We know all about the structure of the motor and so forth and so on. But the point I want to make here is that just like we've learned about the molecular mechanism for how bacteria swim, I think we've also learned a few things about career development and mentoring along the way. So this is kind of a cute figure, but I think you would agree with me that ideally if you were tracking or setting out on your path as a scientist, this is kind of disturbing, right? I mean, I wouldn't really want to have all these stops and starts and turns. It's just not so nice. So I'm going to use the illustration that Stefano just presented in a little bit of a different way. I love this schematic for talking about the new strategic roadmap of ASM. But as I look at it, I also think we can think about this in terms of career development, right? So most of us will find during our scientific career, from the beginning to the end, often we kind of hang out in the same general area of work. So I know for me, most of my work has been in mechanism discovery, right? So I've done a lot of molecular biology here. In my particular case, I was working on a pathogenic bacillus and determining gene regulation and signaling and all these very molecular details of what allowed my organism to be a pathogen. But I also, and this was primarily due to collaborations and just plain old good relationships and communication with scientists who had expertise in other areas, allowed me to move from mechanism discovery over to environmental microbiology and also what we're now calling ASM health. So for example, while I was buried in the lab looking at gene regulation, I met a plant biologist, right? And, well, actually not while I was in the lab, but elsewhere. But I met a plant biologist, and we together determined that my favorite organism, Bacillus anthracis, would grow on the roots of plants in the soil and exchange DNA with other species in that context. I also, by collaborating with an animal modeler, did a lot of really nice animal studies using my mutants I had generated in my organism. So for me, when I look at this circle here, I think by acknowledging our commonalities and our interests and meeting and communicating with other microbiologists, it allows us to freely move between these three, what we're calling units or broadly defined disciplines. Stefano also talked about how non-traditional microbiologists are kind of feeding into this pathway, which we love, which is fantastic. You can also, in terms of career development, think about these going outward into the community, right? So giving back, as you develop as a scientist, giving back to the community, explaining to non-scientists how things work, or possibly drawing non-scientists into various scientific fields. So I really like this schematic for a variety of reasons. So, stepping back now and thinking about one of the founders of microbiology, Louis Pasteur, as most of us know, he had a famous quote, which is, "Chance favors the prepared mind." And I'm sure that Pasteur, in saying this, was thinking about science in general, right? So how do you, there's no real such thing as serendipity or chance, or very little of that in your career, right? So to make those great discoveries and findings and develop new therapeutics and antibiotics, what you do is you read the literature, you talk to people, right? You do a lot of pre-investigation before your experiments. But you can also think about this in terms of career development, right? So career development just doesn't happen. You don't just get from A to B without doing some preparation that will help you attain your goals. And so I'm going to talk, for the rest of my talk, I'm going to give you a lot of examples of the really nice tools and platforms and programs that ASM has for its members to develop their careers and get to that point where they're meeting their scientific goals, scientific and professional goals. Okay, so there's no question that ASM, if you just go to the ASM website, you're going to find all kinds of information about career and professional development, lots of resources, a lot for trainees like students and postdocs, but also for more advanced researchers, okay? You can explore career opportunities, you can connect with a lot of other microbiology professionals, and really begin to chart your career using a number of these tools that ASM has. So the first one I want to mention is our Ambassadors Program. So Stefano mentioned that in the US, we have 35 branches, which are local groups of microbiologists that get together, and they're really the boots on the ground people that are very involved in their communities in many ways, and also in their local student training. We also have a country ambassador program, which is a little bit analogous, in which we have ambassadors all over the world that are providing a link between different scientific communities and the ASM, right? So the goal of these ambassadors is to, of course, advance the field of microbiology at the local level and engage their specific scientific community. They can help address the needs of those scientists by using ASM resources and promote collaboration between the ASM and local universities. And really, what they're doing is they're instilling passion and sharing their passion, in many cases, with the next generation of scientists in their area. And again, this is all working towards our goal of making ASM really a truly global organization. So if you are from China, you may have met one or more of these folks in your broad area. And I heard that actually Dr. Griffin may be here. Dr. Griffin, are you here? All right, why don't you stand up for a minute? So Simon Griffin is one of our ambassadors. He's an ambassador in Hong Kong. Really happy you're here. And I don't know, is, great, yeah, sure, applaud him. It's fantastic. Chen Li Liu, is Dr. Liu here? Okay, and then Xixiao Zai, Dr. Zai here? Okay, well, anyway, we have these three ambassadors, but throughout the world, I'll get there in a minute. If you're maybe an early career or even a more senior scientist, you might want to consider becoming an ASM ambassador. I think it's a really rewarding experience. You can really make a difference for your local community. The current deadline is November 1 if you'd like to apply. You can develop leadership skills if you're a junior person. This is really a great program. We also have, which may be of interest to, I'm hoping, to some of the students and postdocs in the audience, we have a Young Ambassador Program. This is a one-year program, and Young Ambassadors, again, are current students or PhD candidates or postdocs who have a passion for scientists and want to do a lot of, in many cases, public outreach and share their passion with their local community. So this is really easy to apply for. You basically you submit your CV, a cover letter explaining your interest in the position, have an action plan of some activities you might like to do. So there's no set format for this. You can come up with, the world is your oyster. You can dream up whatever you'd like to do in your local area to further to enhance microbiology and further the mission of ASM. You do need a letter of recommendation from an ASM member to apply. So if you are a student or a junior scientist, you might want to think about this program. Also, if you're a student, we have ASM student chapters, okay? So a student chapter also, again, is about sharing interest locally in your community. Chapters, again, can dream up what they want to do. So they can have small local meetings. They can get involved in the community by developing science fairs and judging those fairs. They can take tours of, industrial situations with microbiology going on. Again, if you can dream it, you probably can do it. So think about starting, or if you have one in your area, joining an ASM student chapter. Okay? This allows you to expand your network. Certainly, you're going to meet a lot of people if you do this. Absolutely, you'll develop leadership if you develop a chapter. Again, you can give back to your local community, and this can be from very young students to on up through adults, whatever you can dream. You'll have the opportunity to write a proposal that will potentially result in financial support from a national ASM. And then you'll be an official part of ASM as with the other, you'll have sister chapters around the world. It's really a nice program. Again, applications, you need to apply for this. Applications are accepted year-round, and your application is developing a constitution for your group. So we often have students that work together on this. You need to have some kind of sponsorship from your university and a faculty advisor who's a current member of the ASM. You need to develop an action plan of what kind of activities you'd like to do, and it's really nice if you can engage if you have an ambassador in your area, to ask your local ambassador for sponsorship. So again, you can check more things out about this program at the ASM website. Okay, we also have a really nice series of webinars at ASM that can help, that's called Career Pathways in Microbiology. And these, I think, are pretty much held every fall and spring, but they're also recorded. So these are very diverse talks that can help you find out more about different pathways and different professions in microbiology, everything from clinical and public health microbiology, industrial, how to get into entrepreneurship and consulting, government, all kinds of different postdocs, et cetera. So again, another nice resource that you can find out more about if you just go online to the ASM site. We also have what are called career conversations, and these are written documents online where scientists have offered their advice on a wide variety of topics, okay? So some very practical, so for example, resume tips for you, how to make your resume look really attractive to potential employers, but also just overall career advice in a variety of areas of microbiology. So I highly recommend you checking that out also. So we also have on the ASM website a job portal. And I have to say, this is primarily used by US scientists looking for positions in the US, but that absolutely can be and should be and hopefully will be expanded. So if you are looking to hire someone, no matter if you're in academia or private industry or whatever, you can post jobs on this site. If you're looking for positions, go check out this site. In addition to listing positions that are available, you can also find information, again, on resume writing, a variety of career insights, and just overall things that are good to know when you're doing a job search. So I really would love to see this expanded to serve a more international community. Another program that ASM has, which is relatively new, is the ASM Future Leaders Mentorship Program. right? So this is a 2-year fellowship that's designed, as it says here, to mentor and support microbial sciences graduate student trainees to navigate their career trajectory and develop leadership training. Okay, this is a pretty structured program. You get matched with an experienced mentor who stays with you for 2 years, potentially, hopefully, maybe even longer, but 2 years officially, that will give you a lot of advice and tools on how to further your career. It's a terrific program. Right now, we have fellows from all over the world in this program. So you can see here that of the 500 or more than 500 fellows in the program, more than half are from outside the U.S. And of the mentors, we have a lot of global mentors in this program too. So it's not just U.S. mentors. So for the senior microbiologists out there, if you're interested in mentoring, I encourage you to also check out this program. So while I'm on the topic of mentoring, I want to throw something out that you may or may not be aware of. So in the last, 5, 6, 7 years, there actually have been a lot of articles about how to be a good mentor, et cetera. But one thing that I think is very valuable to think about is the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. Right? So there are mentors and mentees, and then there are sponsors and proteges. ASM uses the term mentor a lot, but I think in many cases, those mentors turn into, or can be from the start, sponsors. So what's the difference? So both are very valuable for you. Okay? So a mentor is more giving tools, right? So a mentor is someone who gives you advice as you move along, tries to help you solve problems, helps you work up a really good-looking CV or resume. It helps you with whatever specific skills you might want to develop. A sponsor is more of a cheerleader that can have a big impact, right? So a sponsor is somebody that may, after they get to know you, recommend you for speaking at a meeting, right? Or may introduce you to very important potential colleagues, right? So it's a more active, getting you integrated into the community kind of a thing, the relationship between a sponsor and a protege. So as I said, both of these kinds of people in your world, if you're a student or a junior scientist, are very, very valuable. They can be one and the same, but they often are not. And you don't have to have just one mentor and one sponsor. You can have multiple sponsors, multiple mentors, right? And you can seek them out. So not only using ASM programs, but just in your local community, you can be on the lookout for people that may be able to help you in your career. Likewise, senior experienced microbiologists should be, I think, on the lookout for junior people that they can help out. Right? So again, you can have multiple of these people in your lives. I think in terms of the relationships, both parties benefit. This is particularly true for sponsors, right? So it's wonderful to sponsor someone and to see that person flourish. So you recommend them to chair a session at a meeting or give a big talk somewhere or what have you. And then the sponsor can say, oh, well, I recommended that person, right? So I must be pretty good. So sponsors get something out of this too. The other thing, though, when I say that, is that if you have a sponsor, it's a serious commitment because your sponsor is spending time on you and is using their reputation to further your career. So there's a responsibility there in living up to that expectation. But these are all wonderful relationships. Okay, so again, I think that this is all about connecting with people in the microbiology community and all over the world. And so we have another great thing called ASM Connect, and this is an online forum. And you can use ASM Connect in a wide variety of ways. So you may have a question about a certain technique, and so you type it in and you ask for comments and people can give you very practical advice. You may have questions or maybe comments on a recent paper that you read and you can get into a discussion with somebody halfway across the world about that paper, okay? You can also get just career advice from others in the community. It's a really nice way to connect with people and it's online, very easy access and a nice tool. Okay, so overall, hopefully I've convinced you that the ASM really cares about professional and career development. We think that building meaningful connections is super important as you progress in your career, and I hope you take advantage of some of the opportunities that I talked about today, and there are more if you just peruse the ASM website. This is all driven by the power of community, right? Community is so valuable. We're seeing it here at this wonderful meeting, right? So together we can do a whole lot more than we can independently. And so together, as Stefano said, we really want to help shape the future of microbial sciences around the world. We can do a lot with that by joining one another in these efforts. And then finally, and you're going to hear a lot more about publishing very shortly, I urge you to consider publishing in ASM's journals. These are terrific journals, very well respected. We're very proud of our publishing efforts at ASM. If you join ASM, you not only get a discount on publishing, and you just heard it's going to get even better, but you also get, if you're an ASM member, you get discounts on ASM events, ASM meetings, and then there are these exclusive members-only programs, some of which I've described today. So thanks very much for your time, and